The signal came at 3 in the morning, Earth time. Lieutenant Una Beak was alone in the communications room of the orbital station when her screen lit up with something she had never seen before. It was a distress call, but not from any human ship. The language was Vel. Una sat up straight in her chair. Her fingers moved fast across the console. The message was broken and full of static, but she could hear the fear in it. Someone was screaming. Someone was dying. She cleaned up the audio and played it again. A voice spoke in the soft, musical tones of the Vel people. "Please," it said. "Anyone who can hear this. They are killing us. They came from the dark space. They do not stop. They do not listen. Please, we are dying." Una felt her blood turn cold. She had met the Vel before. They were gentle creatures. Their bodies glowed with soft blue light. They had 6 arms and no weapons. They had never needed weapons. The galaxy had been at peace for 3,000 years. She sent the recording to United Earth Command immediately. Within 1 hour, Captain Taiho Park was standing in the command center of the battlecruiser Hammer of Soul, watching the same message. His face showed nothing, but his hands were tight fists at his sides. "How many Vel worlds have gone silent?" he asked. 12, said the officer beside him. "In the last 40 days. No survivors. No warnings. Just silence." Taiho closed his eyes. He remembered the stories his grandmother told him when he was a boy. 80 years ago, humans had just discovered faster-than-light travel. They were alone in the universe, sick and dying. A plague had spread through the colony on Mars. Earth had no cure. The Galactic Concord refused to help. Humans were too violent, they said. Too dangerous. Let them die. But the Vel did not listen to the Concord. They smuggled medicine to Mars in secret. They saved 40,000 children. Taiho's grandmother was one of them. Who was attacking them? Taiho asked. "We do not know. The Concord is calling them the Harrow Swarm. They come from beyond the mapped regions. They do not communicate. They do not negotiate. They just consume." Taiho opened his eyes. "What is the Concord doing about it?" The officer hesitated. "Nothing, sir. The council is meeting, but they cannot agree on anything. Most species have not fought a war in over 1,000 years. They do not know how." Taiho laughed, but there was no humor in it. They forgot how to fight. Of course they did. He looked at the frozen image on the screen. A Vel child, crying, reaching toward the camera before the signal cut out. "We have not forgotten." 2 days later, the orders came from Earth. Admiral Haijin Choi, Supreme Commander of the United Earth Navy, appeared on every military channel. She was 60 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes like winter ice. She had never lost a battle in her entire career. 80 years ago, she said, we were alone and dying. The Vel gave us life when no one else would. They did not ask for anything in return. They simply saw people in pain and chose to help. She paused. Now they are the ones in pain, and they have called for help. Earth will answer. Across the planet, things began to move. Old shipyards that had been quiet for decades roared back to life. Factories that made farming equipment switched to making weapons. Young men and women lined up at recruitment centers. More than the officers could process. Sergeant Major Dong-Soo Kwan watched the lines from his office window. He was 52 years old, built like a mountain, with scars covering his arms. He had trained soldiers for 30 years. He thought he would retire soon, spend his last days fishing and drinking soju. Now he smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a wolf waking up after a long sleep. "Get me my armor," he said to his assistant. The old set. The one from the colony wars. His assistant hesitated. "Sir, that armor is 40 years old. It still fits. And the Harrow should see what real human soldiers look like. In the Galactic Concord headquarters, alien ambassadors watched the human mobilization with shock. They had always thought of humans as dangerous animals, barely civilized, best kept away from polite society. Earth was a Class 12 death world, a planet so hostile that evolution had turned its inhabitants into something terrifying. Humans could survive injuries that would kill any other species. They could function for days without sleep. They healed from wounds at impossible speeds. They ate poisons for pleasure and called them spices. They ran for fun. And now these monsters were preparing for war. "This is madness," said one ambassador from a species of floating gas beings. The Harrow number in the millions. The humans cannot possibly win. "Perhaps not," said Elder Nix, the Vel ambassador. His body glowed faint blue with exhaustion and grief. "But they are trying. That is more than anyone else has done." 1 week later, 700 human warships gathered in Earth orbit. It was the largest fleet in human history. Captain Taiho stood on the bridge of the Hammer of Sol and looked out at the stars. His communications officer, Una Beek, had transferred to his ship at her own request. "I heard the call," she told him. "I want to be there when we answer it." Taiho nodded. He understood. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just another star. Ahead of them, somewhere in the darkness, the Vel were dying, and humanity was coming. The journey to Vel space took 14 days. 14 days of preparation. 14 days of waiting. For most species in the galaxy, that would mean rest and meditation. For humans, it meant something very different. Elder Nix walked through the training decks of the Hammer of Sol on the 5th day. What he saw made him stop and stare. Humans were fighting each other. Not with anger, but with focus. They punched and kicked and threw each other to the ground. When they fell, they got up and did it again. Blood dripped from their faces. Bones cracked. And they smiled. Sergeant Major Dong-Su was in the middle of it all, shouting instructions. He was fighting 3 soldiers at once and winning. His movements were brutal and efficient. When one soldier managed to land a punch on his jaw, Dong-Su laughed and hit back twice as hard. "This is training?" Elder Nix asked quietly. A young woman stopped beside him. She had bandages on her hands and a bruise forming under her eye. Her name tag said Corporal Jun Han. She was the ship's medic. "Yes," she said. "We have to be ready, but you are hurting yourselves." Jun shrugged. "Pain teaches us. We learn to ignore it. When the real fight comes, we will not even notice our wounds." Elder Nix felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it. Hope. For the first time in months, he felt hope. On the command deck, Captain Taiho was meeting with officers from other ships through holographic connection. They were planning the battle ahead. The Harrow had no strategy, intelligence reports said. They simply attacked in endless waves, overwhelming their enemies with numbers. "How many ships do they have?" asked one captain. "Estimates say 10,000 at Vel Prime." Lieutenant Una answered. "But more are coming every day. We have 700 ships." "Yes." Silence fell over the room. The math was simple. The humans were outnumbered more than 10 to 1. In any normal war, this would be suicide. But Taiho just smiled. It was the same smile Dong-Zu had shown back on Earth. The smile of a predator. "The Harrow have numbers," he said. "But they have no minds. They attack the same way every time. We are different. We think. We adapt. We have been fighting impossible odds since we crawled out of the mud on Earth. This is what we were made for." Back on Earth, Dr. Minho Seo was working without sleep. He was the chief weapons engineer for United Earth Command. His hair was messy, his clothes were stained, and he had not eaten in 2 days. But his eyes were bright with excitement. "It is beautiful," he whispered, looking at his creation. Thought it was a bomb, but not like any bomb before. He called it the Sunbreaker. When it exploded, it would create a miniature sun for exactly 3 seconds. Anything within 1,000 kilometers would simply stop existing. The weapon had been designed 50 years ago and then locked away. The Galactic Concord had called it barbaric, too destructive, too cruel. Humans had agreed to never build it, but the Concord was not fighting the Harrow. Humans were. Admiral Hai-Jin Choi appeared on his screen. Her face was calm as always, but her eyes showed something rare. Uncertainty. "Will it work?" she asked. "Yes," Minho said. "But Admiral, once we use this, the galaxy will never look at us the same way again. They will fear us even more." Hai-Jin thought about this for a long moment. Then she thought about the Vel children in those distress calls, the ones crying for help that never came. "Let them fear us," she said, "as long as they live." The Galactic Concord sent ambassadors to the human fleet. They arrived on the 8th day of the journey. 5 different species, all telling the humans to turn back. "You cannot win this war," said the lead ambassador, a tall insect like being from a species that had not known violence for 2,000 years. "The Harrow are infinite. They will consume you just as they consumed the Vel." Admiral Hai-Jin received them in the meeting room of her flagship. She listened to every word. She was polite. She offered them tea and small cakes. Then she stood up. 3,000 years ago, she said, "your ancestors built this Concord on a promise. Peace for all species. Protection for the weak. When the Vel were attacked, what did you do?" The ambassadors said nothing. "You held meetings. You debated. You wrote reports. And while you were talking, millions of Vel died." Her voice was quiet, but it cut like a blade. "We are not like you. When our friends are in pain, we do not talk. We act." She pressed a button on the table. A hologram appeared showing the human fleet. 700 ships, bristling with weapons. "Go back to your Concord," Hai-Jin said. "Tell them that Earth remembers who helped us when we were dying. And tell them this: if any species tries to stop us from reaching the Vel, they will learn why the rest of the galaxy calls our world a death world." The ambassadors left without another word. On the 12th day, Elder Nix asked to speak to the human soldiers. They gathered in the cargo bay, 5,000 men and women in combat armor. Nix floated before them, his soft blue light flickering with emotion. "I do not understand you," he said. "My people believe in peace. We have never raised a weapon in anger. When the Harrow came, we did not know what to do. We just died." His voice broke. "But you chose to come. You chose to fight for strangers." Why? For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Corporal June stepped forward. She was small compared to the other soldiers, but she stood straight and tall. "Because 80 years ago," she said, "your people saved my great-grandmother. She was a child on Mars, dying from a plague. Your people brought the medicine that saved her life. She grew up, had children, and those children had me." June touched her heart. "I exist because of the Vel. This is the least I can do." Around her, 5,000 soldiers nodded. They all had similar stories. Fathers and mothers and grandparents saved by Vel kindness. Elder Nix wept. His tears glowed like tiny stars. On the 14th day, the fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Vel Prime was ahead of them, a beautiful world of blue oceans and green forests. But half the planet was on fire. Smoke rose from burning cities. Harrow ships swarmed like locusts. Captain Taiho opened communications to all ships. His voice was steady and strong. "They wanted monsters," he said. "Let us show them what Earth breeds." and 700 human ships roared forward into battle. The harrow came like a black tide. 10,000 ships moving as one. No formation, no strategy, just endless hungry waves rushing toward the human fleet. They had destroyed 12 civilizations this way. Numbers always won. Numbers were everything. They had never fought humans before. Captain Taiho watched the enemy approach on his tactical screen. His heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady. Behind him, his crew worked in perfect silence. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. "All ships," he said calmly, "execute pattern Delta 7. Let them come close." The human fleet did something strange. Instead of spreading out to meet the enemy, they pulled together into a tight formation. The harrow ships poured toward them, sensing easy prey. Closer and closer. 10,000 kilometers. 5,000. 1,000. "Now," Taiho said. 700 human ships fired at once. Not forward at the enemy, but outward in all directions. A sphere of death expanding from the center. Plasma bolts, kinetic rounds, and missiles tore through the first wave of harrow ships. Thousands of enemy vessels exploded in a single second. The harrow did not stop. They never stopped. But now they had to fly through a wall of debris and fire to reach the humans. And while they struggled through, the human ships were already moving, reforming, attacking from new angles. Admiral Haijin watched from her flagship, the Iron Mountain. Her tactical officers were calling out numbers, but she did not need them. She could feel the flow of the battle like music. "They are adapting," one officer said with surprise. "The harrow are changing their approach." Haijin nodded. "Good. That means they are starting to think. And when they think, they make mistakes." On the Hammer of Soul, things were not going so well. A harrow ram ship had crashed directly into the hull, tearing open 3 decks. Emergency doors had sealed the breach, but dozens of crew members were trapped on the wrong side, fighting for their lives against harrow boarding troops. Lieutenant Yuna was on one of those decks. She had grabbed a rifle from a dead soldier and was firing at the nightmare creatures pouring through the breach. The harrow were horrible to look at. They had too many limbs, too many eyes, and mouths that seemed to open in wrong directions. They made sounds like metal scraping on bone. She shot one in what she hoped was its head. It fell. 2 more took its place. "Fall back to Section 12, she shouted to the others. "We need to seal this corridor." They retreated step by step, firing constantly. Yuna's rifle ran out of ammunition. She picked up a metal pipe from the floor and kept fighting. A harrow claw cut her arm. She did not stop. She could not stop. Then the wall behind the harrow exploded inward, and Sergeant Major Dong-Su came through like a force of nature. He was wearing full combat armor and carrying a weapon that looked too big for any normal human. He fired once, twice, 3 times. Each shot turned the harrow into pieces. "You fight well for a communications officer," he said to Yuna as he helped her up. "I learned from good teachers," she answered, breathing hard. Below them, on the burning surface of Vel Prime, the ground war was even more brutal. Corporal June had landed with the first wave of Marines. Their mission was simple: reach the refugee camps and protect the survivors. Nothing about the mission was simple. The harrow were everywhere. They crawled out of holes in the ground. They dropped from the sky. They did not seem to feel fear or pain. They just kept coming. June was a medic. Her job was to save lives, not take them. But when a harrow charged at a group of Vel children huddled in a crater, she did not hesitate. She emptied her pistol into the creature and then beat it with her medical kit until it stopped moving. Her hands were shaking. She had never killed anything before today. She had sworn an oath to heal. Then she looked at the children. They were so small, their blue lights flickering with terror. One of them, no bigger than a human toddler, reached up to her .GEU and picked up the child and held them close. "It is okay," she whispered. "I have you. Nothing will hurt you." She carried that child for 3 hours, through fire and poison gas and waves of harrow attackers. When her legs gave out, she crawled. When her arms grew tired, she found new strength. The child never cried. They just held on to her, trusting completely. In orbit, the Hammer of Soul was dying. The ship had taken too much damage. Systems were failing. The engine was about to explode. Captain Taiho made a decision. "All crew, abandon ship," he ordered. "Get to the escape pods, now." His first officer grabbed his arm. "Captain, what about you?" "Someone has to steer this wreck. I am going to ram it into their command ship." The bridge crew stared at him. No one moved toward the escape pods. "That was an order," Taiho said quietly. "With respect." "Sir," Yuna said from her console, her arm wrapped in bloody bandages. "We did not come all this way to leave you alone." One by one, the bridge crew returned to their stations. Taiho looked at them. These people were going to die with him, and they were choosing to do it. "Very well," he said. His voice was thick. "Then let us make this count." The Hammer of Soul turned toward the largest harrow ship in the area. Engines screaming, hull breaking apart, it flew straight into the enemy. At the last moment, Taiho activated the self-destruct. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface, but Taiho did not die. At the final second, Sergeant Dongzu had thrown him into an escape pod and launched it manually. The sergeant had stayed behind to make sure the ship hit its target. Eldernix was watching when the Hammer of Soul died. He was aboard a rescue vessel, coordinating the evacuation of Vel survivors. He saw the human ship sacrifice itself to destroy the enemy command vessel. He saw the Harrow fleet fall into chaos without their leader. He opened a communication channel to the entire Galactic Concord. "I am Elder Nix of the Vel," he said, his voice trembling. "For 80 years we called humans dangerous. We called them monsters. We were afraid of them. Today I watched them die for us. I watched them bleed for children they had never met. They are not monsters." Tears ran down his face. "They are the best of us all." The battle ended 6 hours later. 200 human ships were destroyed. 15,000 humans died. But Vel Prime was saved. 3 million Vel survived because humanity came to help. And for the first time in its long, hungry existence, the Harrow Swarm had lost. Across the galaxy, other species heard the news. They heard about the humans who fought like demons. The humans who carried wounded children through fire. The humans who rammed their own ships into the enemy rather than retreat. Something changed that day. Fear became respect. Respect became hope. Maybe, just maybe, the Harrow could be stopped. 6 months passed. The war continued. At first, things went well for humanity. They won battle after battle. The Harrow had never faced an enemy that fought back with such fury. They did not know how to handle it. Human tactics were strange and unpredictable. Human soldiers refused to die when they should have died. But the Harrow learned. They stopped attacking in mindless waves. They started targeting supply ships and medical vessels. They found human colony worlds and burned them. They learned that humans needed food and water and sleep. They learned that humans had families they loved. The war became cruel. Captain Taiho sat in a hospital bed on Earth, staring at the ceiling. His body was wrapped in bandages. The doctor said he was lucky to be alive. The escape pod had been damaged, and he had spent 3 days drifting in space before rescue came. His lungs were scarred. His left eye was gone. His body was broken, but his mind was still sharp. And his mind was screaming at him to get back to the fight. "You need to rest," said Corporal June. She had been assigned to his care. She visited him every day, checking his wounds, forcing him to eat. "The war can wait." "The war can't wait," Taiho said. His voice was rough from smoke damage. "Every day we rest, more people die." June did not argue. She knew he was right. She had seen the reports. Vel worlds falling one by one. Human ships stretched too thin. The enemy growing stronger while humanity grew weaker. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Hyjin faced the hardest decision of her life. Intelligence reports said the Harrow were sending a fleet toward Earth. Not a large fleet, but enough to threaten the homeworld. At the same time, the Vel frontier was collapsing. 3 more worlds would fall within the week without reinforcements. She could not defend both. There were not enough ships that her officers waited for her order. Some wanted to go back to Earth, protect the homeworld at all costs. Others wanted to stay and fight. The Vel had sacrificed everything for humanity once. How could they abandon them now? Hyjin closed her eyes. She thought about her father, who had died defending a colony when she was young. She thought about the oath she had sworn when she became an officer. She thought about the Vel children she had seen in the refugee camps, looking at human soldiers with such trust. "We stay," she said. "Send word to Earth. Tell them to activate the home defense fleet. We cannot be everywhere, but we can be here. And here is where we are needed most." It was a gamble. If Earth fell, everything was lost. But Hyjin knew something that the Harrow did not understand. Humans had been defending their home from threats since the beginning of time. Earth would not fall easily. Lieutenant Yuna was not on the front lines anymore. Her skills were needed elsewhere. She spent her days analyzing Harrow communications, looking for patterns, trying to understand the enemy. One night she found something. The Harrow did not speak like other species. They communicated through some kind of shared signal, like radio waves, but stranger. Yuna had been studying these signals for months. They seemed random at first, but slowly she began to see a shape in the chaos. The Harrow were not independent creatures. They were controlled. All of them. Every ship, every soldier, every movement came from a single source. A nexus mind, deep in Harrow space, giving orders to millions of bodies at once. Cut off the head, and the body would die. She ran to Admiral Hyjin with her discovery. The Admiral listened carefully, then called Dr. Minho Seo. Minho looked tired. He had been working without rest for months, building weapons and repairing ships. But when he heard about the Nexus Mind, his eyes lit up. "I have something," he said. "A prototype. I call it the Star Killer. It creates a warp field collapse that destroys everything in its range. But there is a problem." "What problem?" Hyjin asked. "The bomb cannot be launched from a ship. The warp field would destroy the ship before it reached the target. Someone has to carry it in, manually, and activate it by hand." The room was silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Whoever carried the bomb would not come back. "I will do it," said a voice from the doorway. They turned. Captain Taiho stood there, leaning on a cane. His face was pale and thin. His empty eye socket was covered by a patch. But he was standing. "You cannot even walk properly," Hyjin said. "You are in no condition to fight." "I can fly," Taiho answered. "I can press a button. That is all that matters." Hyjin wanted to refuse. She wanted to order him back to his hospital bed. But she saw the look in his remaining eye. The determination. The acceptance. "You will need a team," she said quietly. "Volunteers only. People who understand they will not come back." Taiho nodded. "I know. I will ask them myself." He put out the call that night. He needed 50 soldiers for a mission with no return. He expected to wait days for volunteers. Instead, he had 300 names within an hour. Sergeant Major Dong-Su was the first to volunteer. He had survived the destruction of the Hammer of Soul somehow, floating in his armor for 2 days until rescue came. He was missing 2 fingers and had a metal plate in his skull. He did not care. "I was supposed to die 6 months ago," he told Taiho. "Everything since then has been borrowed time. Let me spend it well." Corporal June volunteered too. Taiho tried to refuse her. She was a medic, not a soldier. She had already done enough. "You will need someone to keep you alive long enough to press that button," she said. "That is my job." Taiho could not argue with her logic. The night before the mission, the Galactic Concord made an announcement. 12 species had agreed to send their fleets to help humanity. It was the first military alliance in 3,000 years. The galaxy was finally waking up. Admiral Hyjin addressed the combined fleet. Humans, Vel, and 10 other species, all gathered for one purpose. "Tomorrow, we launch the largest attack in galactic history," she said. "Our mission is simple. We create a distraction. We draw the Haro's attention. We give Captain Taiho and his team the opening they need. Many of us will not survive. But if we succeed, this war ends. The Haro will fall, and our children will grow up in a galaxy at peace." She paused. "I know I am asking you to die for strangers. I know many of you have never fought before. But remember why we are here. We are here because long ago, the Vel taught us what kindness means. Now we teach the galaxy what courage means. Together, we are unstoppable." In a small room on the flagship, Captain Taiho gathered his 50 volunteers. They were the best humanity had to offer. Soldiers, engineers, pilots, medics, all of them knew they would not come home. "I will not lie to you," Taiho said. "This mission is death. The moment we enter Haro space, we will be hunted. The moment we reach the Nexus, we will be surrounded. We will fight until we cannot fight anymore. And then one of us will press a button, and everything will end." He looked at each of them. Dong-Su, scarred and smiling. June, calm and steady. 48 others, all watching him with trust. "But here is what I believe," Taiho continued. "I believe that some things are worth dying for. I believe that the Vel children we saved deserve to grow up. I believe that our families deserve to live without fear. And I believe that when we press that button, every single person we have ever loved will know that we died for them." He raised his hand in a salute. "It has been an honor to serve with you all." 50 hands rose in answer, and in the darkness of space, the mission began. The final battle began at dawn, Earth time. Not that time meant anything in space, but Admiral Hyjin had chosen that moment on purpose. She wanted her soldiers to carry the image of a sunrise with them, a reminder of what they were fighting for. The combined fleet jumped into Haro space. 3,000 ships from 13 species. Humans led the way, as always. Behind them came the Vel, fighting for the first time in their gentle history. Behind them came the others, species that had forgotten war, learning it again because they had no choice. The Haro met them with everything they had. Millions of ships, endless swarms filling the darkness between stars. For a moment, even the bravest hearts felt fear. Then Hyjin spoke. Her voice carried across every ship, every language, every species. "They think numbers will save them. They are wrong. Today, we teach them what courage means. Today, we show them that free people will always fight for each other. Today, we win. Not because we are strong, but because we are together. All ships, attack." The battle was chaos. Ships exploded by the hundreds. Energy beams crossed the void like deadly lightning. The Haro fought with mindless fury, throwing themselves at the enemy without care for their own losses. But the Allied fleet held. They had studied human tactics for months. They had learned to adapt, to think, to work as one. And at their core, the humans led by example. Every time the line wavered, a human ship would charge forward. Every time hope faded, a human voice would cry out in defiance. While the galaxy burned, Captain Tai-Ho led his team through the edge of the battle. Their ship was small and fast, designed for stealth. They slipped through gaps in the harrow lines, hiding in debris fields, moving closer and closer to their target. The Nexus Mind was at the center of harrow space, a structure the size of a moon, pulsing with dark energy. Every signal, every command, every thought of the harrow swarm flowed through this place. It was their brain, their heart, their soul, and it was heavily protected. I counted at least 10,000 ships around the target. Lieutenant Yuna reported from the fleet. She was monitoring the strike team's progress, guiding them through the safest paths. You will have to fight your way through. We expected that, Tai-Ho answered. Just keep the main fleet busy. Give us as much time as you can. Their ship was detected when they were 500 kilometers from the Nexus. Harrow fighters swarmed toward them like angry insects. Tai-Ho pushed the engines to maximum, weaving through the enemy fire. Brace for impact, Dong-Su shouted as their ship took a direct hit. Half the systems went offline. The hull began to crack. They were not going to make it in one piece. Boarding pods, Tai-Ho ordered. Everyone out. We go the rest of the way on foot. 50 pods launched from the dying ship. 50 humans flying through space in nothing but armor and faith. Around them, harrow ships exploded as the main fleet pushed deeper, drawing attention away from the strike team. 37 pods reached the Nexus surface. 13 did not. Dong-Su hit the ground already firing. His weapon sang its deadly song as harrow defenders rushed to meet them. He was not young anymore. He was not whole anymore. But he was still the best soldier Earth had ever produced. Go, he shouted to Tai-Ho. I will hold them here. You get that bomb to the core. Dong-Su, you cannot hold them alone. The old sergeant smiled. It was the smile of a man at peace. Who said anything about alone? I have my brothers and sisters with me. Now go. That is an order, Captain. 20 soldiers stayed with Dong-Su. They formed a wall of fire and steel, holding back the endless harrow tide. One by one, they fell. But not one of them retreated. Not one of them broke. Dong-Su was the last to fall. He had run out of ammunition long ago. He was fighting with his bare hands, broken and bleeding, singing an old Korean war song his grandmother had taught him. The harrow surrounded him, tore at him, tried to bring him down. He kept singing. Until the very end, he kept singing. Captain Tai-Ho heard the song fade away on his radio. He closed his eye and kept moving. 17 humans reached the core of the Nexus. The inside was strange and horrible, like being inside a living nightmare. Walls pulsed with dark light. The air was thick with something that was not quite air. And everywhere, always, the harrow came. June stayed close to Tai-Ho. Her medical kit was empty. Her pistol was empty. But she had found a harrow blade somewhere, and she used it without hesitation. She was not the same gentle medic who had joined this mission. War had changed her, but it had not broken her. We're close, Tai-Ho said. The bomb was heavy on his back. His legs were failing. His remaining eye could barely see through the blood. Just a little further. They lost more people with every step. Brave men and women who had volunteered for death, finding it at last. Their names would be remembered. Their sacrifice would mean something. Finally, only 2 remained. Tai-Ho and June, standing before the heart of the Nexus Mind. It was beautiful in a terrible way. A sphere of pure energy, pulsing with the thoughts of millions. Every harrow in the galaxy was connected to this place. Every death, every birth, every moment of their existence flowed through here. We made it, June whispered. She was injured. Badly. She was holding herself upright through willpower alone. Taiho set the bomb down. His hands were shaking. The activation sequence was simple. Just 3 buttons. Anyone could do it, but there was a problem. The bomb needed 30 seconds to arm. And the Harrow were coming. He could hear them in the walls. He could feel them getting closer. Someone had to hold them off while the other armed the weapon. June understood before he could speak. "Give me your gun," she said. "I will buy you the time." "June, no. You have already done enough. More than enough." "Let me." She touched his face. Her hand was cold and covered in blood, but her smile was warm. "You have to survive," she said. "Someone has to tell them what we did here. Someone has to remember us. That has to be you, Captain, not me." Before he could argue, she took his weapon and walked toward the sound of the Harrow. She did not look back. Taeho pressed the first button. 20 seconds left. He heard gunfire in the corridor. He heard June's voice, calm and steady, counting down each enemy she killed. 10, 20, 30, more than he thought possible. He pressed the second button. 10 seconds left. The gunfire stopped. He heard June's voice one last time. "Tell them I was not afraid," she said softly. Then silence. He pressed the third button. The bomb began to glow. The Nexus mind screamed, not with sound but with thought. A psychic cry that echoed across the galaxy, touching every Harrow at one dot, and then everything went white. When Captain Taiho woke up, he was on a Vel medical ship. His body was broken beyond repair, but he was alive. Somehow, impossibly, he was alive. "The explosion threw you clear," Elder Nix explained, sitting beside his bed. "Our ships found you floating in the debris. You had no heartbeat for 6 minutes. But humans are very hard to kill." Taiho did not laugh. He could not laugh. He was thinking about Dong Su, who died singing. He was thinking about June, who died smiling. He was thinking about 48 others who gave everything they had. "Did it work?" he asked. His voice was barely a whisper. "Yes," Elder Nix said. Tears were rolling down his glowing face. "The Nexus is destroyed. The Harrow have stopped. Across the entire galaxy, their ships are silent. The war is over. We won." Taiho closed his eye. He should have felt joy. He should have felt triumph. Instead, he felt only grief and pride. Grief for those he lost. Pride for those who stood with him. "Good," he said. "Then it was worth it." 1 year later, a memorial was built on Vel Prime. It was a statue of a human soldier carrying a Vel child. At its base, thousands of names were carved. Human names. Vel names. Names from 12 other species who had fought and died together. Admiral Haijin Choi stood before the Galactic Council. She was older now, tired, but her voice was still strong. "You called us Deathworlders," she said. "You were right. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. A world of poison and predators and endless danger. It made us strong. It made us stubborn. It made us refuse to die." She paused. "But strength means nothing without something to protect. We did not fight for conquest. We did not fight for glory. We fought because someone we loved was in pain, and we could not look away." The council was silent. Many species wept. Others bowed their heads in respect. Captain Taiho did not attend the ceremony. He went to the memorial alone in the quiet hours of the evening. He stood before the statue and read the names. So many names. So many friends. Elder Nix found him there. The old Vel floated beside him without speaking. No words were needed. They had both lost too much to need words. But finally, Taiho spoke. "Do you think they know? The ones who died. Do you think they know what they achieved?" Elder Nix considered this. "I think they knew before they died. I think that is why they were able to do what they did. They understood that some things are more important than survival. Taiho nodded slowly. He touched Jun's name on the stone. Dongsu's name. All the others. We will not forget, he promised. We will never forget. And across the galaxy, new legends were told. Of the small blue world that bred monsters. Of the Deathworlders who roared to war, not for conquest, but for love. Of the soldiers who carried children through fire. Of the heroes who pressed buttons, knowing they would not live to see the result.